A smooth grocery trip often comes down to having the right tools before you leave home. So I tested these 4 apps that make grocery shopping simpler to see how they solve common shopping frustrations. A messy shopping list, not knowing what is already at home, spending too much time reading labels, or having no clear meal plan. Let's dive in. First up, Listonic. I've tested a lot of grocery list apps over the years, and one thing I've learned is that the best ones don't feel impressive at first. They just quietly remove friction. That's exactly the feeling I got with Listonic. The first thing I noticed was how fast it is to build a list. I started typing a few common items, and the app was already predicting what I wanted before I finished the word. Most of the time, I wasn't really typing at all. I was just tapping suggestions. And because grocery shopping is so repetitive, the app remembers a lot of the things you buy regularly, which makes building a list surprisingly quick. I also liked that I wasn't limited to typing. I could use voice input when my hands were busy, pull items from previous shopping trips, or even create a list from a photo. I tried importing items from a recipe, and it saved me from manually entering everything one by one, which is exactly the kind of small time saver I appreciate. Where Listonic really started making a difference for me, though, was sharing. If you've ever done grocery shopping with a partner or family member, you probably know how annoying the coordination can be. Someone remembers an item after you've already left the house. Somebody else buys something that's already in the cart. Half the conversation becomes logistics. With Listonic, I could share a list and see changes happen instantly. If someone added milk, I saw it appear immediately. If I checked off bread while walking through the store, it disappeared for everyone else at the same time. After using it for a bit, I realized the biggest benefit wasn't the list itself. It was eliminating all those little "did you get this?" and "wait, I already bought that" conversations. Another feature I ended up appreciating more than I expected was aisle sorting. This sounds like a tiny thing until you're actually in the store. Instead of bouncing back and forth because your list is in a random order, the app can organize items in a way that matches how you shop. I found myself moving through the store much more efficiently and forgetting fewer things along the way. I also liked how much information you can attach to each item. You can add quantities, units, notes, photos, and even prices. That became useful whenever I was sending someone else to pick something up. Instead of writing cheese, I could be specific about the size, brand, or packaging and avoid getting the wrong product. And then there's the AI assistant. Normally, I'm skeptical when apps add AI features because they often feel like features searching for a purpose. But this one felt surprisingly practical. I could turn a voice note, a photo, or a simple prompt into a shopping list, get recipe suggestions, or ask quick cooking questions without leaving the app. It wasn't trying to do everything. It was helping with grocery-related tasks that I'd actually run into during the week. Overall, what I liked most about Listonic is that it stays focused on the shopping experience itself. And for something as routine as grocery shopping, that ends up making a bigger difference than you might expect. Next is Panzy. One grocery shopping problem I run into all the time has nothing to do with the shopping list itself. It's standing in a store, staring at something and thinking, wait, do I already have this at home? And honestly, half the time I either buy a duplicate or skip it and regret it later. That's the problem Panzy is built around. The first thing I noticed is that it approaches grocery shopping from the kitchen side, not the store side. Instead of starting with a shopping list, you start by tracking what's already in your pantry, fridge, and freezer. You can scan products, add quantities, track expiration dates, and keep an inventory of what you actually have at home. At first, that sounded a little obsessive to me, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized how many grocery mistakes come from not having a clear picture of what's already sitting in the kitchen. I think the moment Panzy started making sense to me was when I imagined opening the app before shopping and actually seeing what was running low, instead of trying to remember everything from memory. Because memory is usually where grocery shopping starts breaking down. You forget you already have pasta. You forget you're almost out of olive oil. You buy another bottle of soy sauce, even though there's one hiding behind something in the pantry. Panzy is trying to eliminate that entire category of mistakes. One feature I especially liked is the low stock system. As quantities drop, items can automatically move onto your shopping list. So instead of constantly building a grocery list from scratch, you're gradually generating it from what you're actually using at home. That feels much closer to how grocery shopping works in real life. The barcode scanner also helps reduce a lot of the setup friction. I could scan products instead of manually entering everything, which makes the idea of maintaining a pantry inventory feel much more realistic. Because let's be honest, if adding items takes too much work, most people stop doing it after a week. Another thing I found useful is expiration tracking. A surprising amount of grocery waste comes from food you technically bought but never actually used. Panzy keeps track of expiration dates and sends reminders before things go bad, which helps you use food you already own before buying more. In practice, that means fewer duplicate purchases and fewer forgotten items getting thrown away later. I also like that the app recently added shared pantry. So if multiple people in a household are buying groceries, everyone can see the same inventory instead of maintaining separate mental versions of what's in the kitchen. That solves a pretty common problem where one person thinks you're out of something and the other person knows there's already another package sitting in the cupboard. What stood out most to me, though, is that Panzy stays focused. It's not trying to become a giant meal planning platform or a social cooking app. The entire experience revolves around one simple question: what do I already have at home? And by making what's already at home much more visible, it makes the actual grocery trip simpler before it even begins. Third is Trash Panda. This one solves a completely different grocery shopping problem. Sometimes the trip isn't slow because your list is bad. Sometimes it's slow because you're standing in front of a shelf, comparing 3 products, reading ingredient labels, and trying to figure out which one you actually want to buy. I've definitely had those moments where a 30-second decision somehow turns into 5 minutes. That's exactly where Trash Panda comes in. The first thing I liked is how simple the experience is. You scan a barcode, or even take a photo of the ingredient label, and the app breaks down what's inside the product, explains ingredients it flags, and suggests cleaner alternatives when available. What stood out to me is that it doesn't just throw a giant score at you and expect you to trust it. Instead, it tries to show its reasoning. I can see why an ingredient is being flagged, learn more about it, and make my own decision. That makes the app feel more useful when I'm comparing products in the middle of a shopping trip. I also found it helpful that it's not just a scanner. The app includes curated lists of products organized by dietary preferences and shopping goals. So sometimes you can find alternatives without spending as much time researching every option yourself. Now, I wouldn't treat any ingredient scanning app as the final authority on what's healthy or unhealthy. Some users disagree with how certain ingredients are rated, and no database is going to be perfect. But I don't think that's the best way to use it anyway. For me, the value is speed. Instead of standing in the aisle reading every label from scratch, I can get a quick breakdown, compare products faster, and move on. So if your biggest grocery shopping problem is getting stuck trying to decide what to buy, Trash Panda can make that process a lot simpler. It's less, the app thinks for me, and more, the app helps me decide faster. Last up is Eat This Much. Now, this isn't really a grocery shopping app, it's a meal planning app. But I think it deserves a spot in this video because I've found that grocery shopping gets a lot easier when I already know what I'm cooking. One of the biggest reasons shopping takes longer than it should is that I'm trying to figure out meals and groceries at the same time. Eat This Much separates those decisions. The first thing I noticed is that the app starts with your goals and preferences. You can set things like calories, diet style, allergies, budget, cooking time, and how many meals you want each day. Then it generates meal plans and turns those plans into a grocery list. What I like about this approach is that I'm not staring at a blank page wondering what to cook this week. Instead, I start with a plan and adjust it if I want to. For me, that's the real meaning behind the app's autopilot idea. It's not completely automatic, and you'll still make edits here and there, but it removes a lot of the decision-making that normally happens before a grocery trip. I also like that the grocery list is tied directly to the meals. Instead of writing down ingredients manually, the app already knows what you need and how much of it to buy. That makes shopping feel much more organized and helps reduce the random purchases that happen when you're shopping without a plan. Of course, it's not perfect. If you're expecting endless meal variety or a system that never needs tweaking, you'll probably be disappointed. Most people still make adjustments to the plans and recipes over time, but honestly, I don't think that's the point. For me, the biggest value is that it creates a solid first draft for the week. And that's important because the hardest part of meal planning usually isn't cooking the food. It's deciding what to cook in the first place. So if your grocery shopping problem starts with, "I have no idea what we're eating this week," Eat This Much is probably the most useful app in this video. Because once the meal plan exists, the grocery list becomes a lot easier to build. So those are the 4. What I like is that they each solve a completely different grocery shopping problem. Listonic helps me stay organized and makes the actual shopping trip smoother. Panzy gives me a clearer picture of what's already sitting in my kitchen, so I'm less likely to buy things I don't need. Trash Panda helps me make faster decisions when I'm standing in the aisle comparing products. And Eat This Much reduces the meal planning work that usually happens before I even start building a grocery list. The best app really depends on where grocery shopping feels frustrating for you. But if you're trying to save time, avoid mistakes, and make the whole process a little less stressful, any one of these could make your next grocery trip a lot easier.